I'd like to call the 3:30 City Council briefing session to order. Ms. Farnsworth, would you please call the roll?
Council President Beggs,
Here.
Councilmember Burke,
Here.
Councilmember Cathcart,
Present.
Councilmember Kinnear,
Present.
Councilmember Mumm,
Here.
Councilmember Stratton,
Here.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Here.
All right, before we get to the advance agenda, I'd like to spend a little time with Mr. Kevin Brownlee, who has been nominated to be on the park board, and this is our chance to interview Mr. Brownlee. And perhaps you could start with just telling us a little bit about yourself and what your interest is in the park board and what you believe you might bring to it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I know some of you I don't know, so nice to see some of you and nice to meet some of you. I have been working in municipal government for over 20 years, both in Seattle and Spokane, in positions that are sort of fulcrums between the public and municipal government. In Seattle, I was executive assistant to the director of customer service for Seattle Public Utilities. We actually took the utilities through a process to merge them. When I was hired, it was Seattle Water Department. We were all separate entities. And my boss and I led a program to consolidate the utilities into Seattle Public Utilities, which was a period where employees thought they were all losing their jobs. Customers thought there would be a monolithic, horrible entity created from this. It was very stressful for everyone involved, but we made it through, and it's been a very successful program since then. And in Spokane, I led the neighborhood program for community development. So we had $1 million in grant money. I worked with the 13 central neighborhoods. They were identifying projects and programs that they thought were important in their neighborhoods. And I was the liaison to make sure that they met local, state, and federal regulations, and that the city department was willing to take them on, and then ultimately passing them on to that department. So I've had a lot of experience with municipal government, contracting, procurement, programming, et cetera. And since I left the city, I've been involved in Associated Garden Clubs in Spokane. I'm the president. We have a small grant program that also goes to community projects, both education for the future of gardening, as well as capital improvement projects, many of which have been in parks. And in addition, I'm on the board of Spokane Preservation Advocates, where we also have a grant program. We've given money to the carousel, for instance, and other park projects there. So I've had a lot of experience in municipal government and community organizing, and also a lot of work with the Parks Department, the Park Board, and specifically Garrett and Jennifer as well. So I have good working relationships with all of them.
And what neighborhood do you live in? And what neighborhood do you live in?
I live in West Central.
Okay, great. Council members, any questions for Mr. Brownlee? Ms. Wilkerson.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Kevin. So I know the Parks Department is getting ready for their next 10-year plan. Could you talk a little bit about your vision of how that would be inclusive to some of the low-income neighborhoods that's been kind of left on the sidelines over the last 10 years?
Well, I've been looking more short-term initially as I've been attending the meetings virtually. And obviously there's going to be big impacts on the budget and in terms of maintenance, specifically with budget cuts, and also with engagement in the various neighborhoods. I haven't thought 10 years out, so that's beyond my scope at this point where I'm looking at it. But when I was working with community development, that was all in the low-income neighborhoods. So I've had a lot of experience with the 13 central neighborhoods, where the low-income neighborhoods are consolidated. So I'm very familiar with them, but I'm just not sure how that will mesh with the 10-year plan at this point. It's beyond my scope, beyond my exposure at this point.
Thank you. I didn't want you to go 10 years out because I won't be here. But I was just thinking, as we're looking going forward with your experience, did you have any different ideas or thoughts around how that community engagement could look going forward through the process?
Well, The program that I worked in, community development, was very grassroots, so it was all driven by the neighborhoods. And the program may exist to a small degree at this point, but I think it's been fundamentally changed. But the neighborhoods actually brought projects to me, to the department through me. So I did a lot of outreach in the neighborhoods, attended a lot of meetings in the neighborhoods, and really sought what they felt was important to them. And then as much as possible within budgetary restraints and regulatory constraints, try to make that happen for them. But again, I think there's going to be so many impacts on the budgets upcoming. I think there's going to be a real need just to have more self-directed interaction with the parks going forward. And we'll have less programming and less new things coming online. So I think COVID has really brought a new appreciation of the parks as a place of refuge and recreation. And I think continuing to get people to do that kind of exploration is what we'll be doing in the short term. I would think of one program might be a family passport that would have lesser known parks on it, many of which are in the lower income neighborhoods. And a family could, over the course of a summer or whatever the length of the passport would be, could visit those, take a photograph of a particular thing, or some scavenger hunt, and then post that to the park page. And there could be some interaction that way with social distance, but still some interaction and community engagement.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Other questions from council members? All right, Councilmember Stratton, I can't resist now. Where did you go to high school, Mr. Brownlee?
In Seattle, it was Nathan Hale High School.
Okay, great.
But he would have fit into any Spokane high school,
Okay.
right, Kevin? You would have been.
I'm sorry?
You would have been perfectly at home in any Spokane high school.
I'm very happy in Spokane.
Kevin's been very, very active in West Central. I also worked with him when he was with our community programs, and he is going to be a wonderful asset to the park board.
All right,
Thank you.
excellent.
Even though he didn't go to school in Spokane.
Okay.
I failed.
He chose Spokane, so. All right. Well, thank you,
Very
Kevin,
much.
so much for your time and for your service. You don't have to be present when we vote for you to be on the park board, but this is our time, and we'll let you know when you are. And again, thanks for your service. Take care.
Well, thank you for your time and consideration. Have a good night.
Yep. Okay, now we can go to briefing the advanced agenda for October 19th.
Thank you, Council President and members of the Council. The first item on the consent agenda is a proposed contract amendment for the Utility Information System Support and Maintenance, and Brendan Myers from the Project Management Office is here to report on this item.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Council President and Council members. This contract amendment is for the Utility Information System Implementation Project to extend the go-live date by 5 months from November 2020 to April 2021. And the reason for this amendment to extend the contract is due to the COVID-19 response efforts that had a direct impact on the milestones and deliverables earlier this year on the project. There were a number of employee availability impacts with the telecommuting transition needs, extended time off, remaining employees with an increased workload. We had a project employee that was on standby layoff for a while. And the project activity impacts due to the limited staff resources, technology resources, and travel restrictions caused some critical design, development, training, interface, and integration delays within the project. The contract amended cost is for just under $320,000, which with an initial contracted project cost of $3.3 million is just about 9% of the contract total. Any questions?
Don't see any. Oh, wait, Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe I missed it. What exactly is the software for?
This is the Utility Information System Implementation Project. So this is a replacement of a 30-year-old existing system called C-Star that is used for utility billing and maintenance of that system.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a proposed contract amendment with a consulting firm for grant writing and technical assistance for the EPA Brownfield grants, and Terry Stripes is here to present this item.
Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon, Council members. So this contract amendment is a very small contract amendment. The projects began back in 2017 when EPA approved a series of 3 grants for us to assist in the Riverfront Park cleanup. Grant number 1, grant number 2 closed out just fine on time, actually ahead of schedule. North Bank was supposed to wrap up this summer, but due to some of the COVID concerns regarding construction and also a rebidding of the project, that construction slowed. So we weren't able to hit our closeout period of August of this year. So what we did is we asked EPA for a time extension to wrap up that project, and we asked for a full year. Parks believes that we will have all of our construction done on this by this December and January, but we asked EPA to extend that grant for a full year just because it was unknown at the time what COVID may bring and additional roadblocks that we may run into. So far, everything's looking like we will wrap up in December and January, and we'll close out that report early. But what we needed to do was shift some of our funding from actually taking care of the dirty dirt to tracking our compliance and reporting our compliance to EPA. So that's why this consultant's contract is looking for an additional $10,000. So that's where we're at.
Terry, I see there were 3 grants that we got from EPA, and it sounds like 2 of those were for Riverfront Park. What was the other one for?
All 3 were Riverfront Park, Havermill Island, Canada Island, and North Bank, and they all coordinated with the cleanup and the revitalization of the park.
And were those specifically sought after for Riverfront Park?
All 3 were for Riverfront Park.
Are those grants that in the future we could apply for again for other parts of the community?
Yes. In fact, we're in the middle of a grant application right now. One of the things to just remember is that for cleanup of property, it has to be property owned by the city of Spokane.
Gotcha.
So the grant that we're looking for right now is going to include partnerships with the Yard.
Yes.
City districts, Bragg, all of those, and it does contain 2 identified sites for possible cleanup.
Okay. No, I think that's really important. We get some attention on the Yard. So thank you.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Terry.
Next, we have 2 items that pertain to our therapeutic courts. The first is a grant extension for DUI court with the Washington Traffic Safety Commission, and Seth Hackenberg from Municipal Court is here, and I know there's other members of the community court team available as well if there are any questions. So, Seth.
Yes, good afternoon, Council President, Council members. There are some members of the community court team available. This first item is actually for the DUI court. The DUI court team, unfortunately, is not available. We're actually having DUI court at the moment. So they just sent me, so I'll give everybody a quick rundown. This first item is the grant extension of our Washington Traffic Safety Commission grant. It's for $63,000 total. $50,000 of that is going to be used for UA testing funds. The reasoning behind that is we like to keep our court as inclusive as possible. We understand that the $20 8-time-a-month fee is kind of expensive. We want to make sure that's mitigated so anybody can enter the DUI court if they want to and there's no financial barriers. So that's generally why we're using that $50,000 for the UA testing. Outside of that, we also have $12,000 that's going to be used for travel and training purposes. This is actually money that would have been used this year. However, due to the COVID situation, the annual NADCP RISE conference was canceled. It was moved forward tentatively till next year. So we are planning to go to that, and that's what these training funds are for. And that conference is really just a collection of various training about drug courts in particular, also DUI courts, all therapeutic courts in general. We generally like to take any new members of the team there. The Washington Traffic Safety Commission recommends that we have this updated training, and it's kind of the best place to get it. So that's what those funds are for. And the last $1,000 is just going to be used for purchase of a couple tablets and some daykeeper journals. Tablets are just used because we understand during the COVID situation, many people would like to check in from home. We also understand that not everyone has a smart device or a tablet, so we're going to have a few on hand for those individuals that are unable to afford those. That way we can accommodate them. And then the day planners, that's just something that Judge Staub likes to give. It's a good way of getting everyone on track and allowing them to write down, because we do require a lot of them in the UI court, lots of meetings, lots of different things to do. So because of that, it's good to kind of have those day planners. Also, one last thing, this grant extension we actually didn't even ask for. We were just awarded it because the Washington Traffic Safety Commission recognized our efforts and felt it'd be worthwhile funding us for a third year. So, any questions?
No.
Not seeing any questions. Seth, let's move on to the next proposed grant award. This is from the Office of Justice Programs in the Department of Justice to expand the community court in the East Central neighborhood. So, Seth, take it away.
Yes, thank you. And our lead public defender, Francis Adewale, is with me, and so is our lead prosecutor, David Kling. So they'll be able to jump in as well when we get to the question phase. I'll just give you a quick introduction of the grant. This grant is going to be for a total of $166,048. This is for expansion into the East Central neighborhood of our community court program. The vast majority of this grant money is going to be going to the hiring of a social services advocate. This position is going to be a individual who connects our participants with various services that our providers have. It's a way of making sure they maintain contact with the providers and making sure that the providers that Spokane has, because the city is very, very well provided with a lot of various services. We want to make sure those services are available to everyone and make it as easy as possible for them to access them. And that's something the Social Services Navigator is going to facilitate. Outside of that, there is going to be some money for training. That's the training and travel. It comes to a little under $29,000. And what that is for the potential conference that the community, the Center for Court Innovation hosts. At the moment, though, because of the COVID situation, we are unaware if that's going to occur. If that doesn't occur, we're going to talk about potentially using those funds for other things. We don't want them to go to waste. So that money is kind of up in the air at the moment. The remainder of the funds are going to be used for training from Just Lead. This is a program that teaches training in racism, structural racism, various other issues like that we poverty issues, all of those things we want the community court members to be trained in. And Just Lead is going to be able to facilitate for us for that. And that's going to be about $15,000 overall to meet your mark for that. That includes training provided by Just Lead as well as travel for the individual. So that's kind of the breakdown of it. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Francis Adewale. He can kind of go into more detail as far as why we've chosen location and the grant in general.
We can't hear you, Francis. You're muted.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you. City Council President and City Council members, we appreciate the opportunity. The goal is to ensure that our community is taken care of. Public policy, public safety is the primary direction of this council as well as of the city of Spokane. Public safety is what enables us to build on other things, including prosperity for our neighborhood and everything else. With public safety guaranteed, we are able to do a lot of other things. So this will ensure that our neighborhood is taken care of. Our community take care of itself. Majority of the fund that we are asking from DOJ is going directly to the community. We have put together a community advisory board from the community, from that community, and they are going to be the ones to advise on where the funding goes. Seth has talked about the training that we are not able to go to. We are putting that fund for that training back in the community in providing employment opportunities and all of that, and classes that will enable people to move on well in life. So I really appreciate particularly the city council members from East Central that has really been very helpful to us in this process. And we appreciate all the work that the council has done to help us in getting this ground. When we move community court to Northeast, a lot of our providers that do not have offices in the north at the Northeast move and open offices in the Northeast. Thank you. Dave Klink.
Any questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. For Francis, I'm not sure who can answer this. Is this acceptance of this money tied to the location of the community court?
Not at all. It's not tied to anything. It's not tied to any location or any place at all.
So will the council then get to vote on where this community court is held?
I think that's above my pay grade. I think all I understand about the location of the court, because the judiciary is the third arm of government, and even though we are partners with the municipal court as public defender's office, as well as prosecutor's office, the courts get to make that decision. But of course, the city council have a lot of powers. You can do whatever you feel like you want.
Well, that's my. I certainly want these $166,000 to go to criminal justice, and I want to make sure that it's focused on East Central. I think those are both really good. But I have some very strong concerns over this being located at the MLK Center, especially in light of the fact that just in the last 2 weeks, we have had some very questionable interactions between community court participants and staff at City Hall. And I just think that that's very concerning to me, what's happened at City Hall, which be a pretty secure facility, and what could happen at the MLK Center. So I'm very strongly concerned about that, and the fact that we're really not going to have any direct input on that decision.
Dave Klink, you want to respond to that?
Well, as far as the situation at City Hall, I mean, I've been in community court since February of last year. I was down there at the library when our numbers were probably, instead of having 15 to 25 people at City Hall like we do now, we had, 150 to 200 people at the library, with people coming and going. I think the two incidents were isolated, and we've already addressed it with the security that we have on hand. It's a roving security officer near that employee door on. The behavior in court has been very positive. We haven't had any issues within the city council chambers. And it seems like the Martin Luther King Jr. Center seems like a good fit. We haven't had issues at Northeast. We had that this morning. So I don't think security is going to be an issue.
Is there a security plan then at the MLK Center in such a way that it won't impact families that utilize the center?
We had our first opportunity to be there was last Monday, and we have private security that's coordinated by the court, as well as a police officer on hand, just like we do at Northeast. So we actually have better security at these satellite community courts than we do, in my opinion, over at the traditional Alpha Court for municipal court, just because we have the private and police security presence there. I haven't seen any situations with Northeast since I've been there. And the numbers are usually a lot lower on, I say, these satellite community courts compared to the downtown one, but obviously our downtown numbers are still low because of the COVID situation. I would add one more thing as far as why we're excited about this grant. While we have access to services that you just don't have in the traditional court, that's what makes us a distinguished therapeutic court. We're actually a mentor court nationally as well. So now cities like Seattle are asking us as prosecutors and public defenders for additional assistance as they try to start back up. I would say the one gap that we have is kind of the gentle handoff between the different services. So we have all these different service providers, but we don't have the person that can kind of walk the person from one step to the other and keep track. So I think that's something that is definitely worth a go, especially with the grant money, to try to see if that will improve our outcomes, especially for people that need that extra assistance.
Okay, last question. What, if you know, what percentage of the folks who go through our community court system reoffend?
From my perspective on this, I would refer you to the WSU study where they were looking at all the data. I would say one of my undergrad majors was as economics, so I know you can look at statistics in a number of different ways. One thing to keep in mind is that if somebody's not buying into our court or proceeding along or hasn't entered an agreement with us, we don't hesitate to transfer them back to the traditional court. And so that person may end up getting convicted in a traditional court that we wouldn't follow with our data necessarily because our case has been handed back off. But as far as the recidivism rate, I believe that study did show improvement based on comparison to the traditional court. I don't have that number off the top of my head. Sorry.
I do know the number. It's a 12% reduction for community court participants. So I believe the initial number was something around, I want to say 33% of regular Alpha Court participants end up reoffending. Community court participants on average are 12% less than that.
Okay.
Sorry, council member, go ahead.
No, this is truly my last question. You said something that sparked something. So you mentioned that some of these folks, if they don't belong in community court, can be sent back to Alpha Court. Can you explain why specifically the individual who caused some issues at City Hall a couple weeks back with a staff member was, his lawyer apparently had pleaded to have him remain in community court. Can you explain why that would be the case?
Dave, can I respond to that? I want to say this, that person is not in community court, was not at any point in time. He was direct cited. He was direct cited by the officer to community court. Everyone can be direct cited by the police officers into community court. However, when they come in, we have a right, I believe the city prosecutors have a right to reject their participation in community court. And that is exactly what happened to that individual, because he has shown a pattern of not ready to follow rules, not ready to even make sure he attend into to follow the conditions of programs previously in the past. So he was rejected. He had been rejected before, but the officer cited him directly. So he was not, that person is not in community court. That if you're not willing to follow conditions of your agreement in community court, you are out of there. We only want people that really want to change their lives. And we will give you every support you need to change your life. But if you want to mess around, you don't belong there, because the resources we have is very few and we only want serious people there. So, but to add to another question that you have, the security has been, we used to have about 4 securities. We have increased that in City Hall to 5. We have now a roving security outside of the City Council chambers, outside, to make sure that people are not, that our participants go in and go out without any problem. So we are attending to your concerns and we are working to make sure that everybody feels safe.
Okay.
It's specifically, Councilmember Cathcart, on that individual, I believe their last experience in community court was in January, and they weren't buying in at that time. And that was the history for why we weren't going to accept the person. We did, even though they were there last Tuesday, prior to the incident outside, we weren't comfortable entering the agreement. And in fact, we transferred out immediately. And then we coordinated with Officer McCaslin to flag his name record so that when he's contacted downtown, hopefully he's not direct cited back. But we've actually, even during COVID, we've transferred more people out than we've transferred in, because we are just really, even if numbers are lower, we're trying to focus it on individuals that need and want to follow through.
All right. Councilmember Burke has been waiting. Go ahead. Okay.
Thank you, and I want to thank you guys again for joining us today and in the past to explain what community court is. One thing I just wanted to note is that, the MLK Center is willing to have this at the East Central location, and so it's something to remember. Like, this is a really great partnership for our community, just like the one at Northeast Community Center is, just like the one at the library, which is now being held at City Hall during COVID and the construction time. So I wanted to thank you guys again for all your hard work and dedication to making sure that we're meeting people where they're at and trying to change lives. So just to also thank the MLK Center for stepping up and, doing what's right for the neighborhood and for the community. And so I know that Frida's been working hard on making sure that we get this there. So I just wanted to thank you guys. And, we have some good, strong partnerships in Spokane. So it's really great to hear this kind of stuff happening.
Go ahead.
Could I add one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. And I'm sorry to go back to this, but the recidivism that Councilmember Cathcart was talking about, one other thing to really keep in mind between traditional court and community court is the type of offenses. So honestly, I would hope that people are more likely to have another public urination type charge than a DUI charge or a DV charge in traditional court. So it may take more of these lowest level charges to be picked up before we can actually gain traction with services, which may look like they're picking up more charges, but it's a totally different, it's apples to oranges with the run-of-the-mill charge that you get in traditional court.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for community court, and I really do support the program. I do have some concerns, though. Thank you, Councilman Cathcart, for pointing out that the grant is not location specific. You have heard our concerns that you were going to come back to us with other options. Councilmember Burke, there were other locations that also volunteered to have community court in East Central. I know our presentation from the Envision Center said that wasn't an option because they weren't sure if they were going to be there, but they've come before council, and that's looking pretty optimistic. That location has all the services that these people need. So it really, I am challenged with the very people you want to serve. You want to separate them and have some at the Envision Center and some at the MLK Center. So I'm actually going to ask for deferral for 2 weeks. I'd like to hear about other location options. If MLK is the best place, council would probably really appreciate, because that was shared with us in the beginning, that you would come back to us and entertain other options that was available for community court in East Central. So, Council Chair, I'd like to defer this for 2 weeks, please. Tell me what to do next. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to defer consideration for 2 Mondays after next Monday. Any discussion? All right. Seeing, let me ask, I guess I can, since I'm council president. Mr. Hackenberg, this grant, if I understand it, accepts the money. It doesn't specify the location. But is there anything about accepting the money that prevents us from changing the location later?
Not to my knowledge, as long as it's within the East Central area.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Stratton, you're on mute.
So if we defer this for 2 weeks, there any problem with the grant? Is there anything else we need to look at to make sure that it doesn't put the money in danger?
Can I respond to that, City Council President?
Yes, Mr. Adewale.
Thank you, Your Honor. I believe that accepting the grant has little or nothing to do with the location of the court. And I'm urging the council not to delay, because at every minute of delay, stop and hinder the opportunity of being able to hire somebody from East Central Community area to staff this program. Every delay deny the opportunity for someone to be able to hire for this program. And I believe that we have the issue about going to the Envision Center, we have addressed in previous presentation, because there is no funding. We have no funding to locate the court elsewhere. There is no funding. The Envision Center, we have contacted them. They said absolutely no opportunity. And we have provided the email that we have provided, I believe you sent us the email where they absolutely told us there is no opportunity there. So we have explored every other opportunity that was opened up, including the church that was mentioned, Richard Allen Center. We have contacted everyone. No one is willing to give us a space without paying money. And the city of Spokane has not given us, we have not come to you at any point. This is the only court in the nation that we would start this court without asking the city council for a penny for location. We've done this for the last 8 years without asking you for funding to help us get a venue. And we are proud of the work we are doing, because we believe in the community, the work that we are doing, and we get a good response from the community. The only assistance we have ever received for community court is from the Downtown Spokane Business Partnership. They gave us the first $10,000 we used to fund to provide lunch for people when we started this court. And that speaks a lot to how much the business community appreciates this. And I do not want us to think that defining this for 2 weeks is we're going to be taking. We have put a community advisory board together to hire this person. They are meeting on Monday next week to interview and we specifically requested that whoever is going to be taking this position must live within East Central. So we will be taking the money that we would have used for this program. We would delay the acceptance of this fund. I don't see how that helps the community. I don't see how it advances the goal that you all, the public policy goal that you all want to push. And I'm urging the council to not delay accepting the fund. You can move the court anywhere. You can always move it at any point in time. So that's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adewale.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with
Councilmember.
I'm going to go with Ms. Kinnear first, Councilmember Kinnear, and then Ms. Wilkerson, and then Mr. Kling, if you have anything more.
Thank you. I want to just ask this again so everybody's crystal clear that the other locations that you explored, including Richard Allen Court, including the Envision Center, would not do it for free. They would not give the space. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilkerson. Councilmember Wilkerson.
Again, thank you, Francis, for that. I am okay. It's not the money. It's the location. It's the broken promise that you all would have re-engaged council in the location discussion. From where I sit, it felt like criminal justice was just parachuting into that community. This component about hiring someone from the neighborhood, that is great, and I'm glad to hear that. But the engagement piece has been challenging at best. It has been extremely poor communication, I feel. And I'll even speak for Councilman Cathcart. at this point in time. So again, Council President, I'm okay with approving the grant, but I would like further discussion on location.
Okay. So, just so I understand you, are you withdrawing your motion to delay acceptance of the money as long as we have further discussion on the location? Is that what you're doing?
I will withdraw my delay.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other comments? All right. That was an elaborate.
President?
Yeah, Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, sorry. I just, I appreciate the commitment to revisit the location, but what would that process look like? Who will reconvene those conversations? I mean, how is that going to move forward? I guess my hope in delaying this would be that there'd be some encouragement, motivation to actually have those discussions.
Yeah. Well, I've been in touch with Reverend Lonnie Mitchell, recently retired, from one of the leading churches there, who owned the community center and the Richard Allen Courts, and he has agreed, in principle, we haven't sat down and talked yet, but in principle, to convene a meeting of interested community members to talk about the location. So we haven't scheduled it yet, but he's agreed in principle, and I've talked with Councilmember Wilkerson about that. I haven't spoken with you yet about it until just now, but that is my hope, is that we can convene some stakeholders and talk about really two things. One, the best place for it, and secondly, some of the communication breakdown so that we can get that restored, because we're all on the same team, all wanting to go in the same direction, and so we just need to get that a little more solidified there. So there's probably a little processing to do on that. So I have an email from Reverend Mitchell in my email today asking me to call him to sit down and talk about it. So it's not date certain, but that's the direction. So, Councilmember Wilkerson.
So I withdraw my motion to defer.
Yep.
However, we get to vote next week, correct?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Next week it's on the consent agenda.
I can't hear you.
Oh, next week it's on the consent agenda.
Okay, well, it can be pulled.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hackenberg, for our longest consent agenda briefing. But great work that you all are doing. Everyone agrees on that, and we just have one piece of it to keep working on. And that gets us to the report of the mayor pending claims, city council minutes, which will be filled in. And we have 2 park board appointments. And then I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Ormsby, for the legislative agenda.
Don't we have a request for motion to suspend council rules to add?
Yep. You're on mute, Mr. Ormsby. You're still on mute. There you go.
Sorry. So, Council President, we have 3 proposed items to suspend the rules on and add. I think 2 of them are proposed resolutions regarding to the bid, and one is a proposal regarding a public hearing, which I think would probably fit under the consent agenda items, and I'm not sure how the council would like to deal with those.
Well, first, so there's some items to add to the agenda, and before that, we need a motion to suspend the rules. Any council?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and suspended.
So, Council President.
Oh, a second. I have to take a vote on that. Any
We
discussion?
need to vote.
That's right.
Any discussion on suspending the rules? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of suspending the rules indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Abstentions? All right. The rules are suspended.
Okay. Thank you, Council President and council members. So the first item is to set a public hearing on revenue sources for the 2021 budget, and the hearing would be proposed to be set on October 26th. Then item 8, or proposed item, the next 2 items, actually, Council President, are resolution items, so they would fit under the resolution section. The first deals with the modification of the boundaries for the downtown parking and business improvement area, and the second is a resolution of intention to change certain assessment rates within the business improvement area.
Okay. And if I understand both of those, we're not voting on those boundaries and rate changes, but we're setting a hearing to discuss them. Is that right, Mr. Piccolo?
That is correct. You have to pass the 2 resolutions setting the hearing for October 19th. And by this Friday, hopefully, we'll have the attachments to go with the resolutions. There'll be the boundary map showing the bump out on the south side and the changes to the assessment rate. So on the 19th is when you'll have the hearing and you'll decide whether or not to approve those 2 actions. But adopting the resolution is just setting the hearing for October 19th.
So to be clear, are we trying to vote on the resolutions today to have the hearings on the 19th?
No, it'll be on your advanced agenda today. Then on the I think I misspoke there. Then on the 19th, you'll approve the resolution setting the hearing. Sorry, I apologize for that.
And the hearing is going to be in November?
Yes.
Okay.
November 9th. I have too many hearing dates.
Okay.
Bouncing around.
Okay, so, and I see.
Is that the same date for both?
Yes.
No, on November 9th is the hearing date, yes, for both resolutions. And then once you act on those, and then in December, you have the annual assessment roll hearing.
And for those of you who might not have been following this in the past, there's been a lot of requests from businesses south of the viaduct to have the bid take over their area, and the bid can do that up to 10% expansion a year, regardless of the votes. And so that's what the bid is seeking to get our permission to do. Again, the permission to do that isn't going to be up for a vote until November 9th, but the resolution would give fair notice and hearing to people that that's coming on November 9th. So, okay. So, let's stick with the Business Improvement District first. So there's the 2 resolutions, one on the boundaries and one on the change in rate, which is essentially adding in those boundaries. Are there any questions or discussion about adding a resolution, setting a hearing, resolution to be voted on October 19th, hearing November 9th? Okay. Councilmember Cathcart.
Just a question. I'm wondering, could we, I guess, would it be appropriate for us to have any sort of conversation around this in committee or at a study session before then?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. We'll invite the bid managers and Mr. Piccolo to talk with us in more detail before we actually have to vote on it. Yeah. This just sets up the hearing. We're kind of compressed at the end of the year of having to get the hearing scheduled, so that's what the rush is for today, not to the substance. All right, any other comments or questions? All those in favor of placing those 2 resolutions on next Monday's legislative agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Okay, those are placed on the advanced agenda. And then number 7 of the consent agenda for next week is simply setting the first revenue hearing for the 2021 City of Spokane budget for the following week, the 26th. Again, just a procedural, not anything substantive, just giving notice of it. Any questions on that?
Paul and Josie is here, Council President and council members, if there are any questions.
Okay. And You know what? I'm going to go backwards because I got everyone to vote on those two resolutions, but I never had a motion, and I can't bring a motion to do that. So let me ask if there's a motion to put the two bid resolutions. Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Okay. Now, I'm going to ask for a similar motion to place the resolution setting the revenue hearing on October 26th, but the resolution to be heard on the October 19th advanced agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Abstentions? Okay. Those are
Council
all
President?
set. Yes.
I would move to place that on the legislative agenda next week.
Okay. You have the right to do that unilaterally, so the revenue hearing resolution is on the legislative agenda. All right.
Can I just clarify? We're making a resolution of when the hearing is, not on the substance.
You are correct.
Is that what you want, Mr. Cathcart?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You want us to take up at the legislative to discuss when the hearing's being held?
No, on the hearing. Is that what we're talking about?
Nope. The resolution for next week is only to set the hearing on the 26th, which will be at the legislative thing. So
then I'll
withdraw that.
I thought this was for the hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Back to, that's item 7 then now on the consent agenda.
Okay.
All right. Now,
Then, Council President, to go back then to the legislative agenda, on the resolutions, we have 2 additional resolutions. The first is approving the appointment of Stephen Burns as the Director of Water and Hydroelectric Services, and Amber Richards, our HR Director, is here to present this item.
and she presented.
I muted myself.
You presented earlier today. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Thank you. So I was able to find some information to the questions that were posed at the session earlier today. So I just bring those for additional background. So for the position, the Water and Hydroelectric Service Director position history, in 2008, it was a standalone position, and it was at range 62 of the MMPA pay scale. In approximately 2017, that position was combined with the Wastewater Services Director position to form a Water, Wastewater, and Hydro Services Director position, and that's the one that Dan Kegley was filling. And that was at range 64 of the MMPA pay range, and that was the pay range for that was $108,000 to $149,000. So then in 2020, those positions were then split out again. So we now have a wastewater director position that Raylene Jeanette was approved or appointed to. And now this position, which is, again, the water and hydro service director position. So the current pay range for these, the wastewater position is at a range 59 of the exempt confidential pay scale, which is $100,000 to $138,000. And the water and hydro position, which is this one that we're discussing today, is at range 61 of the MMPA pay scale, which is actually the same pay range. It's just they're different scales. So it's also $100,000 to $138,000. So those positions are equal in their compensation, and they're also equitable with other department heads in the Public Works division. So that hopefully answers the questions about the position history and the salary questions that were raised. And then as far as the recruiting information, so I might have to do a little bit more digging on this, but what I was able to initially find is it was posted on NeoGov, Government Jobs, LinkedIn, Indeed, and Careers in Government, which is actually a pretty broad posting. So more specifically for this recruitment,
the recruitment itself got 5,900 views. So that's pretty significant exposure. Of those views, we had 62 applicants. 31 of the applicants met the minimum qual. So that is also a pretty big pool for what is ultimately a very niche role. We did 8 interviews by phone, and then 5 individuals moved forward to the final interview stage and were interviewed virtually. So that's a little bit more background on sort of the extensiveness of the recruitment. The analyst that was actually conducting this is out on a long-term absence, and so I'm not able to find if there was anything that we posted on like a public works specific job board or a water or engineering specific job board. I can certainly do some more digging, but just initially that was what I was able to find for the background on this position. And additionally, we will work to make sure that Mr. Burns sets up an interview time with Council President Beggs, and if any other council members are interested, we can certainly encourage him to reach out and schedule time to meet. So that's the pieces I wanted to update just since the briefing session earlier.
Great. Can you just explain to us the difference between the wastewater position range and the, I think you said exempt confidential 59 and then MMPA? Why would there be in 2 different worlds? I get that they're the same amount of money, but what's the significance of any difference between the 2?
So we actually think that the wastewater position is not is not aligned appropriately. We actually think that should be an MMPA position, not an exempt confidential. And we are working through that with MNP. That it was discussed at the previous labor management meeting, and it's something that we're trying to work through. I'm not sure why it was exempt confidential. It seems to align more appropriately with MNPA, so we're working through that process.
Does MMPA have any more job protection than exempt confidential? I'm trying to figure out what the difference
slightly, it is slightly more protected, yes. Those are, they are under the MNPA contract, which is, it does give a little bit of a buffer.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. Thanks for being so quick on that information. I appreciate it. That's good.
Oh, you're welcome. I don't want to hold things up or not provide. This is my first time, so again, I will try to be better prepared and anticipate what things you may ask.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Amber. And the final item on the proposed legislative agenda is a resolution approving the Plan Commission's work program, and Councilmember Mumm, who I believe is the council's representative of the Plan Commission, is here to present that resolution.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. McClatchy has sent around the updated resolution, and then we will also send up the attached document later. So I can make a motion to substitute the updated resolution that shows it's just for 2020. If someone would like to second that.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved in second. Any discussion about the substitution? Any discussion about the substitution? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of substituting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Abstentions? All right, it is now substituted. So anything else you want to say about that? Because it just comes up for a vote next week.
No, just that it was delayed. We usually do it in January, and it was delayed because of a change in staffing and then COVID, and it was something we needed to clean up. We will meet again in December with the Plan Commission, and we will have another go-round of what 2021 looks like, and then we will sit down and finalize that in January and probably bring it forward sometime in January after the Plan Commission does their formal adoption and of recommendation.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, so I know the resolution says that we'll revisit it periodically, and I just wonder if we could maybe put language in there that says we'll at least revisit it each year or each January or something a little more specific to kind of hold our feet to that.
Yeah, it already is. That's why we do it annually, and we have quarterly meetings that are set up with the Plan Commission and the Council. So the work plan is always usually adopted in January of every year.
Well, right, but we didn't do that this year. That's what I mean.
That's correct. We didn't, and that's why we're fixing it now, and it's already codified for us to do that. It doesn't specify the month.
Right, what I'm suggesting is including something in there so that we make sure we revisit this soon rather than later.
Other than the code?
But you're, Councilmember Mum, you're saying it's in the code that it's supposed to be annual?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just simply saying that we should be sure to revisit it in January rather than perhaps letting it be put off till next November.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Kinnear.
So, not to be argumentative here, this is the first time that we've waited so long. So I've been here 12 years now. This is the first time we've waited this long. I think extenuating circumstances are showing us not just how this has been delayed, but a lot of other things as well. So I can't foresee this is going to be a problem in the future, but I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just saying this hasn't happened before.
And Councilmember Cathcart, I'm just slightly unsure. Are you suggesting that we amend the ordinance in the future to make sure it's January, or are you seeking to amend this resolution?
Just a suggestion that we would include language, just to make sure we revisit this in a timely manner.
Okay.
But either way, I mean, I'm glad we're updating this.
Okay.
So.
All right. I think point well taken then. All right. All right. So the vote is whether or not to. No, we already did. Might have lost track of where we were procedurally. We
passed
voted
the
on it.
substitution.
So we already substituted it, right? Okay. So yeah. So I just asked if there was anything else, and then that's all that we have for the advanced agenda. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the advanced agenda as amended.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the advanced agenda as amended indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Abstentions? And all right. The advanced agenda is approved. We'll see that next week. Which brings us to this week, and the rules are already suspended, but we had a request to add one special budget ordinance, C35951, which increased the number of fire communication specialists or fire dispatchers from 4 to 7 at a cost of $64,134 this year, because it's just the balance of the year. It allows the fire department to hire 3 more dispatchers. That'll get them up to 11. They just hired 2, and so those 5 will be training, hopefully to be done as close to February 1st as possible. So that, anyway, is there a motion to add that to the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion about adding it to the agenda? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of adding to the agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Abstentions? All right, that's added to the agenda. Next up, we're going to have the consent agenda. Ms. Farnsworth, and item number 7 was going to be asked to be added, but the contracts for the new CARES Act money allocations are not quite ready, so we're not asking to add. So it's 1 through 6.
Okay. Reports, contracts, and claims. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but speak loud. That mic's always.
Okay. 1, contract renewal with Alcohol Monitoring Systems, Inc., Littleton, Colorado, for electronic monitoring, GPS, and alcohol monitoring as an alternative to incarceration and as a monitoring service for probation and court from September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021, $264,000. 2, contract amendment with the law firm of Thomas W. McLean, PLLC, Spokane, for legal services and advice regarding the matter of Lonnie Topsrud v. Spokane Police Department et al., $50,000. Total amount, $200,000. 3, lease agreement with Frontier Behavioral Health, Spokane, for office space on the third floor of the intermodal facility from August 1st, 2020 through midnight on February 28th, 2027, $162,986 cash rent revenue. 4, spill prevention, preparedness, and response equipment grant agreement with the Washington State Department of Ecology to purchase a dedicated hazmat equipment truck capable of storing Spokane Fire Department's hazmat response equipment, $85,000, relates to Special Budget Ordinance C35950. 5, report of the mayor of pending A, claims and payments of previously approved obligations, including those of Parks and Library through October 2nd, 2020, total $7,625,543.37, with Parks and Library claims approved by their respective boards. Warrants, excluding Parks and Library, total $6,649,881.54. B, payroll claims of previously approved obligations through October 3rd, 2020, $7,573,597.92. 6, City Council meeting minutes, September 28th, October 1st, and October 8th, 2020.
Any discussion about the consent agenda? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Abstentions? All right, consent agenda is passed. And we agreed last week to hear our two special budget ordinances at the 3:30 meeting so we could free up the 6 p.m. meeting to interview some Chase Youth Commission nominees and hear from the mayor's State of the City. So if you could read the first special budget ordinance.
Right. Get to the right page. Ordinances amending ordinance number C35857, passed by the City Council December 16, 2019, and entitled An Ordinance Adopting the Annual Budget of the City of Spokane for 2020, making appropriations to the various funds of the City of Spokane government for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, and providing it shall take effect immediately upon passage, and declaring an emergency and appropriating funds in Ordinance C35950, Fire EMS Fund, from Washington State Department of Ecology, $85,000. 2, vehicles, same amount. This action allows for the purchase of a hazmat equipment truck. Council sponsor, Councilmember Cathcart. Relates to consent agenda item number 4.
There's no public comment signed up for that, despite some notice and the ability to sign up. Is there any council discussion? All right. Seeing and hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call. Councilmember Mumm.
Aye.
Councilmember Stratton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Aye.
Council President's an aye. Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Aye.
All right. That passes 7-0. And then the next one, Ms. Farnsworth, but we just added it, so you probably have to read the body of it. I don't know
Let's
if
see.
you have it. C35951. C359.
Okay. Ordinance C35950, an ordinance amending ordinance. Didn't I just read that?
Oh, but C35951.
Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Ordinance number C35951. An ordinance amending ordinance number C35857 passed by the City Council December 16, 2019 and entitled An Ordinance Adopting the Annual Budget of the City of Spokane for 2020, making appropriations to the various funds of the City of Spokane government for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, and providing it shall take effect immediately upon passage and declaring an emergency. Whereas, subsequent to the adoption of the 2020 budget, ordinance number C35857, as above entitled, and which passed the City Council December 16, 2019, it is necessary to make changes in the appropriations of the Combined Communications Center Fund, which changes could not have been anticipated or known at the time of making such budget ordinance. And whereas this ordinance has been on file in the City Clerk's office for 5 days, now therefore, the City of Spokane does ordain Section 1, that in the budget of the Combined Communications Center Fund and the budget annexed thereto with reference to the Combined Communications Center Fund, the following changes be made. From Fund 1630, Fund Name CCC, Budget Code 1630-35210-28200-54141, Description IF Other Professional Services, Amount $64,134. 2. Fund 1630 CCC, Budget Code 1630-35210-28200-02850, Description Fire Communication Specialist, from 4 to 7 positions, $37,646. To Fund 1630, Fund Name CCC, Budget Code 1630-35210-28200-52110, Description Social Security, $2,879. Fund 1630, Fund Name CCC, Budget Code 1630-35210-28200-52210, Retirement, $3,670. Fund 1630, Fund Name CCC, Budget Code 1630-35210-28200-52400, Industrial Insurance, $88. Fund 1630 CCC, Budget Code 1630-35210-28200-52310, Description Medical, $19,734. Fund 1630, Fund Name CCC, Budget Code 1630-35210-28200-52330, Life Insurance, $117. Section 2. It is therefore by the City Council declared that an urgency and emergency exists for making the changes set forth herein, such urgency and emergency arising from a need to hire 3 additional fire communication specialists, and because of such need, an urgency and emergency exists for the passage of this ordinance, and also because the same makes an appropriation, it shall take effect and be enforced immediately upon its passage.
Thank you. Again, no one from the public requested a comment. Is there any council comment? All right, seeing and hearing none, I will call for a roll call. Councilmember Mumm.
Aye.
Councilmember Stratton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Aye.
Council President's an aye. Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Aye.
All right, that passes. That brings us to the end of this meeting, and we'll see people back at 6 p.m. We'll hear from the Girl Scouts with the Pledge of Allegiance, and again, the Chase Youth Commission nominees, and the mayor with her State of the City address. Look forward to seeing you all soon. We're adjourned until then.